Hey, pushing it. New video. In this one, we're going to talk about pain control. And the reason I'm talking about pain control is it's a big subject, and a lot of people seem to forget sometimes that there's different ways of dealing with pain than just popping in pills. And so there's alternative medicine or alternative methods, I should say, to use in pain. But to understand that, you need to understand how pain travels. I'm no artist, I'm more a Picasso when I do whatever, but I'm going to try to explain some concepts of pain, how we feel pain, and how some of the medication works. And I'm going to put a little diagram down that explains it very well. It actually even cites that where the pain works and everything like this, and hopefully that was helpful. So imagine that this is an arm. Yes, a lot of imagination, but we decide to, here you go, burn ourselves right over there. So how does pain goes through things? There's two mechanics that works, and the reason we're going to explain a lot of the physiology is because if you understand the physiology of it, then you can understand the medication that we're going to use on it. So we're spending a lot of time. So there's two reflexes that we have. So for example, if I have my hands on a, so let's say would be hot coffee, and I put my hands on it. The first reflex you'll do is pull out. And so what this happens is that, so this is a little bit what our spine looks like. It looks a little bit like a butterfly. And in the spine, so we have nerves that goes all the way up to here, and they connect over here. So what I just did by touching and pulling out is called a reflex. And how reflex works is that so over here we'll have the brain, and this is our spine. So we have our back, and we have the brain up here that gets information and process information. In a reflex, the brain is not brought in. So what happened is that I do feel the pain. Boom. I send an information. So just like a two-way communication, our bodies have two ways. So there's so we have the motor nerve and the sensor nerve. And so the sensor will sense stuff. So basically, if I poke myself, cold, hot, pressures, all those sensors will go to the spine, brought the information, and that's what's happening. And in the motor, all it does is basically, so if I want to reach this basically my brain said to my arm, push your arm. So this is what's just happening right over here. So if I feel pain, sometimes what I'll do is do reflex. And the reflex is basically get an information, the information again send, pull this out. And so it's going to send, but it's not the brain that's telling that, it's just dust. The ouch that comes after is basically now this information goes all the way up to the brain in a special place and says, I just burned myself. And so you do this first, and then you say, ouch, I burned myself, because now you was brought. So the distance that it took over here way longer than the reflex that you did that. Reflex, there's not much we can do about that, because like I said, it's a reflex. So basically if I burn myself, it pulls out right away. But after that, all the sensors, so for example, again, we'll continue with that burning things. If I just burn my hand, so now my hands have sensors over here, and it keeps sending information to the brain saying it burns. And that's the pain, that's what we call pain. So you feel the pain through your brain, even if my reflex did. And so again, there's nothing we can do about that. It's automatic. We don't control that. This goes to our brain, and then our brain explains pain. I got pain, 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 pain. So if I have a second-degree burn or a first-degree burn, some of those are more nerve. It's the nerve. The nerves are sending informations through the brain saying, I still have pain. So let's say in a case of a burn, how can I control pain? Well, I could stop it, and we'll choose a different color. I can stop the brain from receiving the information. I could stop the information to go to the spine, or actually at the sites themselves, I could generate this. So for example, in burns, especially like first degree burns and things like that, those creams that you have, like the burn gels and things like that, what it does, the soothing information that it does, that's what it does. It acts straight at the pain control, and or if you put water and everything, because what the pain of burns, especially superficial ones, is that basically the nerves are in contact with air, and air, when it's very sensitive to the skin, so that's when you have, like for example, a paper cut, and it gives this off. So if you cut this contact with the environment, it doesn't have the fence, and then information doesn't go in. I could also put medication between here and the spine until I numb it and things like that. Or I could give on the brain. So most of the drugs, opioids, so morphine, codeine, Demerol, fentanyl, ketamine works a little bit different, but all those drugs, they usually works at that level. So when you take, for example, morphine, it doesn't really cut the pain, it doesn't decrease the information that goes to your brain. All it really says to your brain is like, I don't care about it. That's really what opioids do, is just like, I do not give a damn about the pain that comes to me. So when the morphine works, this is how it works. The information still goes to your brain, but it just kind of numbs a little bit like alcohol, the same thing. So for example, if you're drunk and you bump yourself, that's what it does to your brain. It numbs your brain, that the information that comes to you, you're like, don't really care. So some of the drugs, the stronger drugs, will act more on this part. And some of the drugs will kind of work more at this level over here. So for example, one of the drugs that can work here, when you go to the dentist, so when you go to the dentist and they work on your teeth and stuff, they inject the medication into your, well, not really in your tooth, but in the nerve that goes to your tooth, and you know, the current, you talk like this and stuff, and your face gets all numb. This is what they do. And they use stuff like what we call lidocaines, so all the anes, so bupivacaine, lidocaine, there's a lot of them, but what they do is basically numbs so decrease the electricity that goes to my spine, and basically I do not feel it, so then they can do their work and do all their stuff and what they do. And again, like I was saying, sometimes also at the sites themselves, so the nerve that are receiving the information can be numbed as well. So why are we talking about all this? Because a lot of people, for pain control, all they're going to do is kind of act here or on the spine themselves, but they forget about those ones here. And in the self-reliance medicine situation, those ones can be much easier to replicate than those ones. How come? Well, for example, one that we can truly have access to is ice. Ice will freeze. So when you put, for example, ice on your arms, because you have like you broke your, or you sprain your leg or something like this, you can put some ice on it and freeze it. Well, when you freeze the nerve, the electricity doesn't travel as well, and then you don't feel the pain as well. So for example, if for whatever reason you would decide to do primary closure, so for example suture, but again, we'll have another discussion, but let's talk about staple or something like this, and you do not have the anes, so the bupivacaine, lidocaine, and all those gain, you can still numb the spot. use some ice. So for example, you could use ice, numb the place, and then it could work. Another thing that those things can now help, for example, if you have broken ribs, what you could do is basically put a patch of those lidocaine, bupivacaine, and things like that, and decrease the information of the sensors that goes to the brain. So now that means that I do not have to use as much medication for here, and I can use some medication that can go there. And so a lot of people, so that's why a lot of people seems to forget about that. And in the little diagram that I have down, they will explain some of the medication where they work and stuff. Another one too that some people seems to forget is that at our spine, we have different receptors. So for example, temperature is one, pressure is another one. There's about 4 or 5 of them receptors. And so if you work on different receptors, the pain that you have will decrease. Well, Tylenol and ibuprofen, which is 2 of the ones that you can have over the counter very easily, will work different at different spot over here. So instead of just taking, for example, 1 pill, so just taking some Tylenol and just taking some ibuprofen in a higher dose to try to work, you can combine those 2. So for example, in the hospital, we use a lot the combination of both. So we give a high dose of Tylenol with a high dose of ibuprofen, and the pain will go down like very quickly. And one thing that you have to understand on pain control, there's 2 kind of big concepts to understand. So if my pain is here, it doesn't show here. So if my pain is here, it's bigger to bring it down faster with a big dose than to bring it up like this and then kind of do like this. So a lot of time, bigger dose, go big or go home, is a better technique for pain control than smaller dose at a regular alternate. Because once you bring it down, then you'll be able to go with smaller dose. So for example, again in the hospital when we start, we give Tylenol and ibuprofen in a big dose, or we'll use medication, for example, like Percocets. But then we'll do in between dose, so that to maintain that pain control in the bloodstream. So again, to go to the brain and kind of numb it up. But at the beginning, to give a big dose and boom, break the cycle of pain will be much easier. But you can combine those 2. So yeah, big dose and stuff. So I will do another video talking a bit more about what you should carry and how because again, multi-purpose. I'm trying to build a still, and then we'll talk a bit more. But those concepts I wanted to start putting so that you guys, so your Pusina can start understanding that there is different ways of taking care of pain, and it's not just with pills. You can use ice, you can use different things that, for example, one that a lot of people seem to forget, Benadryl cream. Well, Benadryl cream is over the counter, you can buy it, and again, you have to be careful. Every drugs that I'm mentioning or talking, it's your responsibility to, if you use it, to understand when and how to use it, because sometimes you go outside to use the normal use of this cream, and you have to understand when and how to use it. Well, for example, Benadryl cream, yes, it will decrease the rash that you have, but also, Benadryl is what we call a dirty drugs. Basically, it works on different things. Well, it can numb as well. So now if I have a Benadryl cream, for example, it can have 2 uses. If I have a rash, I can put it on it. But if I have pain on something, I can as well put some Benadryl cream on it and decrease the pain right at the level. Anyway, that was just an introduction to pain controls and everything, and the diagram hopefully will help you. And like I said, further down we'll do a video that talks just about that. Talk to you soon.